Hello everyone, Bma and EveAzn back with the second episode of the Last Word SVE podcast. It's been a busy week for me. I've been searching for a new rental place. The place I've been staying at for the past 4 or 5 years, the owners decided to sell. So my energy's been mixed between Shadowverse and other card games and also trying to find a new place to stay. So yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks. How about yourself?
Yeah, same with myself. Obviously, we're both playing. As you know, I'm also playing other card games, so traveling is really important for me, and I've been busy with that and scheduling my flights for the current and future events.
Mm-hmm. Have you scheduled your flight for Perth yet?
It's on the fence. Just need to sort out a few more things.
I've been procrastinating. I think during the time when I could have booked it, it's gone up by like $40 each way. To be fair though, part of that was because I wanted to lock in like a place I'm staying at long term in Sydney until I booked the flight. So the timing just wasn't particularly great, but we'll get there. I'm definitely going though. I've already bought the tickets for the tournament and all that and started preparing. So no, it's not SVE related, but this is also an SVE podcast, so we won't be talking about it here. I did actually come home today. I played two locals. Well, one of them was just the normal locals. I played Usurpation Storm. So typically before I write guides, I like to at least playtest the deck so I know all the ins and outs so I can share it with my Patreon subscribers. So that is coming out and a shameless plug for the Patreon. However, I also, for the second tournament, I played Uma. So for the Showdown challenge, so I won this neat King Elephant top A, and then also Dark Alice alternate art. It's pretty nice. What do you reckon?
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, it was miraculous. I managed to beat Egghaven in the first round, to be honest. And then after that, I just first Forest Lord. Actually, I did lose one game in Swiss to the Forest player. He popped into Cassio. He was turn 6. He played Nature's Guidance on his Harvest Festival, and he drew into Cassiopeia to full clear my board. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then like a turn or two after, he dropped King Elephant, swung at me for 8. I was fine. I clear it, start up a ward, and I have like a pretty strong board. And then he top decks, like it wasn't even a setup. He just literally top decked in silver board. I'm like, okay, cool, I lost. But in the finals, I versed him again, and let's just say that I had Daiwa, 4/4 on the field, and he couldn't answer the Daiwa on turn 4, so on turn 5 I dropped double vodka. Agnes Tachyon, use Lamplit, clear his board, use Evo Point, evolve it, get back Lamplit, and my board's like 20/20 in stats, so very skilled, and that's how I won the Alice from.
3 sets later, and the horse skills are still doing damage to the middle.
Yeah, I think as long as you can avoid Egghaven, I think the deck is still fairly powerful, in my opinion. It's not great against Aegis Haven as well, to be fair.
I think it's just the most flexible deck, right?
Yeah, it's probably the last expansion where it's like competitively viable. I think like after this set, it's probably going to be like a tier 2 or 3 deck, but I mean for now it's still perfectly good, especially in like a board-based meta. And there's like this one guy in my locals, and he just plays like this aggro dragon deck. And like I don't know why it works, but basically it's just PDK slash aggro, and then it just dumps on like every Haven deck. Like if you play Egghaven, you lose. If you play Aegis Haven, you lose. And so like, I mean, obviously those are the decks I'd like to play, but I also don't enjoy like, because he just usually goes like 4-0 or something. So like if I like if I play these decks, I'm just gonna lose to him. So like I've been mixing it up between playing like Patient Sword and Uma, to be honest. I think both decks are good. But it kind of sucks that like you even have to consider that, because like obviously I'd like to just play the tier 1 decks, but when one guy is just always doing well, you don't really have a choice. Like you want to win the tournaments, right? But like the scene's not big enough where you just bring the tier 1 deck and you're like, oh, I might dodge him, because in reality you're not gonna dodge it most of the time. Yeah, I didn't face him today. Yeah,
I feel like you always take for like your biggest threat, whether it be like your locals, or if like a tier 1 deck and a regionals or something like that.
Yeah. And to be honest, sometimes it really does feel like you just get unlucky. Like it's a BO1 format, and like just the losses you have, they don't feel particularly fair. It's like you think you would win like more times out of 10, but because BO1 and you just lose one game, that's it. No matter how unfair it is.
It's the nature of the game, right? Like card games are always gonna have like a huge RNG aspect out of it.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the first topic of the day. So I recently opened 7 cases of BPO5, and I was really hoping to hit a serial card or a god pack. And so within that 7 cases, I will recount it for you. Okay, I'm not going to count what I pulled. I'm going to tell you what I didn't pull. Okay, so I pulled 0 serials. I pulled 0 god packs. I pulled 0 Annan Grey leader, which is like the best one, obviously. I pulled 0 Cerberus leader, which is the second best leader. I pulled 1 Ian leader, which is, considering my luck, that's actually a good thing, because he's definitely the worst leader you can pull. But at least there was some mercy there. And I pulled 0 Super Legend Galmu. I think I didn't pull a single one in 7 cases. I don't think I pulled the Super Legend Galmu base or the Evolve. And I think I also didn't pull a single Octress SL. So, I mean, obviously, I know you haven't been buying cases of product or anything, and usually I don't either, to be fair. I'm going to cut back on that a little bit to be fiscally responsible. But I did go ham on BPO5 because, you know, I play Shadowverse Digital like a lot, and Omens is like a very iconic set, so I did want to try and hit some serials. Of course, I did not hit. But yeah, I'm going to be more fiscally responsible, but basically, I think what happened with this particular case, right, is I think the randomization is not pure random. So my theory basically goes like this. Even though distribution-wise, say you open 100 cases, right? Like you might pull like 30 of each Super Legend on average, something like that, right? But your odds of like, I think the way they randomize it is like really dodgy. Like I think my theory is they have 2 configurations. So they have like this one configuration which we'll call configuration A, right? Mm-hmm. I'll have another one which we call configuration B. And so what I think these configurations do, right, is they're like the main 2 patterns that you can encounter. And then pattern A is where you get like Rulanai SL and you get like Exudia base SL and all of that type of stuff, right? And then you get another pattern B where you hit all the other ones. So you hit like Galmi SL, but you don't hit like Octress base SL, etc., right? So within these configurations, I think you have, I'm just going to guess, a 50-50 chance of hitting configuration A or configuration B, right? And so the configuration which I hit 7 times in a row, possibly even 8, because the 2 boxes Bushiroad sent me, I also pulled like a Super Legend Octress base and a Super Legend with Shanna base, which is like very common within configuration A, let's call it. But I think I pulled the same configuration, the same time, like the same one, 7 times in a row, despite 4 cases coming from 50 cards, and then I had 2 cases coming from a master case at a good game store in Sydney. I had 1 case coming from Adelaide, right? So these are all just randomly different locations, and somehow I hit the same Super Legend configuration 7 times. And you get these really weird situations where like the premium foil for this set, you're not guaranteed 1 of each. So one of the premium foils which I really wanted to hit was 7 of Usurpation, which is like the 1-drop sword card where you mill a card from your opponent's deck and it gets +1 attack for each card that gets milled during your turn. And I only hit 1 of those in 7 cases. And like, you know, it's definitely not random, because I had a very similar story like being heard from like other people that have opened a lot of cases. Like the cases look very similar. Like within configuration A and B, the main difference is that you'll usually experience is like 6 of the Super Legends will be from that configuration, and maybe 2 will be from like the other configuration, or a little bit random. So I hit 1 Spinaria SL. I think I hit like 0 Galm SL, obviously, right? Base and Evo. I hit 0 SL Ultras. And like, these are already like 4 Super Legends, right? In the set. And it's not really that many. So if you open 7 cases of which there are 8 Super Legends in each case, and you're hitting like literally 0 of like multiple cards, I think it leads like credence to like the theory that there are 2 configurations. So look, I'm a little bit annoyed like in multiple ways. You know, obviously I want to hit a serial card, I want to hit a god pack, but that's the nature of gambling. But because of the way that the pulls went, I don't even feel like I got a proper random shot, if that makes any sense. And to be honest, I think in my entire state, like in Sydney, we pulled 0 serials total. And I think we've opened like close to 30 cases. And it just doesn't seem right to me, because like I don't think there are that many cases out in the wild, which means like, I mean, obviously like, you know, there's a lot of variance involved and you can't say it's not variance, right? But I mean, it does feel a little bit sus. But I do also believe that my luck is terrible, so I might have the worst luck in the world, to be honest, based on my cases, and I'm not sure I'll do it again, to be honest.
Look, I can tell you from experience, it's definitely not random, and there are different amounts of algorithms for different companies.
Mm.
Like, obviously, some companies have more or less. Like, I don't know if you heard, but there was a non Japanese card game that's pretty hot at right now, and they just released a new set. And during their week of pre-release, people have already mapped out the entire algorithm for the box that just came out. So as soon as you open a single pack from a box, if you look at that rare, I mean, if you look at that, whatever the super rare is, you can map out exactly what card you're going to get in that side of the box and on the left side. So you open the, like, top right, you'll know everything underneath it and everything on the side of it, which is like crazy, right? So it goes to show, like, there are definitely like different what do you call it,
like patterns, or like
different patterns,
configurations, whatever you want to call it.
Configurations, right. And this one seems to be the laziest one yet. But yeah, I feel like there has to be some sort of algorithm where they like put the cards into the pack. That I feel like there's no true way of like actually like randomizing it.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing, right? Like, I can kind of accept it from the perspective of, you know, even when you get actual true random, right? So like when you play certain card games, or like, you know, gachas or whatever, you know, like sometimes I think League of Legends was actually like a good example of this, where they had like a crit chance, where it's basically the more times you missed crit, it actually gave you a higher chance of hitting the crit on the next hit. So that's like the opposite of like pure random. If it were pure random, you could hypothetically miss 5 times in a row, and your 6th hit wouldn't be any more likely to be a crit. But in League of Legends, it's basically like every time you missed a crit, you become more and more likely. So say you had 70% crit. If you somehow missed crit 3 times, like if you're a gambling man, like in League, you pretty much just assume the 4th hit's going to be a crit for sure. And so like that's like the type of knowledge like would come in handy. But so like I guess my point is basically like the reason they do that is because they know that it'll feel really bad if they don't have a protection system like that in place, right? Where you're guaranteed that crit, because then you'll feel like something's broken inside the game, right? But like and so like if it were true random, it is technically possible that those 7 cases were just like legitimately, you know, purely random, and I just got really unlucky. But I think it's way more likely in this case that they use configurations to make the production easier, like, let's just say, right? But I also think like there's clearly something wrong when, you know, an entire state like buys that many cases and it hits 0. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, I mean, like, to be fair, maybe they shouldn't allocate them towards like specific countries or specific states. To be fair, they can't, right? I mean, obviously I bought 4 cases from the US, so we can't even say for sure. But yeah, I don't know. It was a pretty disappointing experience, I have to say. And I'm okay with spending money on the game. I enjoy Shadowverse Evolve, right? I don't whale for any other card game, actually. So I play a bunch right now, but Shadowverse is the only game I play that I don't play minimum rarity. Every other card game, I try to play minimum rarity if I can. And like, it just sucks this time because I obviously bought 7 cases, which like 10k AUD, and I don't even think I'm going to get like even $3,000 back in that. Like, oh, maybe. I mean, part of it is because I'm not going to sell some of the cards as well. Like, I want it for my personal use. But the other part is some of the cards, like my pits were just actually terrible. And like, it would have felt, it would have felt fine if I hit like one of the shitty cereals, but I just didn't hit anything.
You go past the saying playing minimum rarity. You play games with no cards. You play other people's decks.
Okay, so for context, James did lend me his deck for Dragon. Let's just say Dragon Ball, right? Fusion World. I think it's okay to say. So yeah, James lent me his deck for Fusion World, and then twice. In my first tournament, twice. So my first tournament, I was playing Top Coup, and then and I split the final round, and we split the Zero Goku, like with my rank 7 opponent.
How generous of me to give you the tier 0 deck while I suffer on some rogue as, whatever.
Hey, but you said you were on like 1 hour of sleep over 48 hours. I feel like that's your fault.
It's my fault.
Yeah. I don't think it's a deck
from my generosity, right?
Of course. And then the second event, I only played 3 hours before the event, but your coaching was really good. And then I managed to get, I think it was like 11th place outright. And like you said, I don't own any Dragon Ball cards. It's literally borrowed them. So that's like the next tier down. It's like this minimum rarity, which I do for like card games like One Piece, and then with Dragon Ball, I go 0 rarity. But yeah, I mean, again, Shadowverse Evolved podcast, boys. So it was a very unfortunate set of pools for BPO5, I must say. I'm not sure if I'm buying any more cases in the foreseeable future. I think I might just buy singles while I recover. And then I think my next extravagant purchase will probably be set 15. So maybe like 2 years from now. I mean, not like anyone can complain, right? I'm probably a top percentile spender. I spent like 10k on Shadowverse.
I think, like, despite what you said about it, I still think like Shadowverse still has the most prettiest cards, honestly.
I think the Super Legend rarity in particular looks amazing. And then also the premium foils themselves, they actually do like, they're a massive step up from like the, so I mean, I like the art for Shadowverse a lot. I like playing the game.
I feel like even like the common cards, like the bulk and stuff, like you get such a large chunk of the artwork, which a lot of other card games just restrict for their like alt arts or like full arts, whatever you want to call them. So that's something I do appreciate, where it's like, if you enjoy the art itself, like nothing is really amiss, right?
That's an optimistic way of looking at it, because obviously I could have just bought one case and then experienced all the artwork. Oh, sorry, did I mention I pulled 0 Lishana Ultimate as well out of like all the ultimates? So you get guaranteed. Yeah. All right. Well, Anyway, my next whaling will probably be set 15. I'm gonna take a guess, and we can go back to this in like a year or like 8 months or whatever from now. Pretty sure set 15 will be Asphalt. That's my guess. You probably don't know it, James, but Asphalt is one of the most hyped sets that they released in digital. Before like obviously the hiatus, let's just say. But it's like basically the setting is like it's like an afterlife, like kind of prison, and then basically there's like 8 criminals like on each floor, and each of the floors represent like a specific vice. And so like the idea, like the concept behind it is like most of these people are locked there sort of like it's not purely black and white, it's more like they're morally gray, and so like they're like your protagonist, and then also they've got like a corresponding antagonist that like is heavily hinted to be like figures from their past, who are like basically tormenting them as punishment for the perceived sin that they had in when they were alive. So like that is one of the coolest sets ever released, and like the cards basically define the meta for like pretty much an entire year. Especially like one of the cards you might have seen people play is like Barbaros, but I mean like all of the artwork is insane. Like they put in a huge amount of work. It's all original characters. Like it's very similar to Omen of 10. So I think that's very likely to have cereals, and if it does, I will almost certainly be whaling that set. But that's going to be like what, 1 or 2 years away for English. So I have plenty of time to financially recover.
Yeah. Recover is a good word of saying it.
Financially recover. Alrighty. So that's it for my disastrous 7 cases. So I would have actually uploaded the videos. I did record everything, but I'm just too salty to upload it, so that's not going to happen, guys. All right, the next topic. So, new ambassador, Red Zone Rogue. So, it was recently announced that Red Zone Rogue, who's a very popular variety content creator for card games. So, I think most famously, he does Grand Archive. I think he's like the main face of that. And then he also does Flesh and Blood. So, both of those, I would say, probably his main game, but he has been doing Shadowverse Evolved for, I think, like close to release, right? And he does like a few videos every set. So he does like a big one with like all the decks and techs, and occasionally do box openings and stuff like that. So he has been somewhat active. And then also he did the casting for the World Championship, or like the World Invitational. I believe that was what's that, like in February, right? So so he has been like part of the scene for a while. I guess like the main talking points there is obviously he does have like a little bit of a different background compared to Igni and Different Fight. So Ignideus and Different Fight, they're both ambassadors who were very much involved with digital Shadowverse, right? And so it kind of makes sense. And Different Fight especially, he's like a massively Bushiroad, like massively Cardfight Vanguard, which is now officially collaborating with Shadowverse Evolve in Japan, which is really cool. But Red Zone Rogue, I feel like he's a lot more kind of external, and like obviously he does content for it, but he's coming from like a different place where it's sort of like here's an opportunity for his 18,000 YouTube subs, right, to get exposed to Shadowverse Evolve. And I think from that perspective, I think it does make sense to have that popularity injection. I think potentially the downside is that I think there will only ever be 3 ambassadors. In Japan, we're in year 2 point something, and the original 3 ambassadors are still the only 3 ambassadors that they have. And I think it would be extremely unlikely that there will ever be a 4th ambassador for English, while there's not a 4th ambassador for the Japanese version. So I guess like the criticism isn't whether or not Red Zone Rogue is a good pick or not, from the perspective of his current merit, right? Because it probably is the best candidate, let's just say, outside of, let's just say, Burn One, right? Burn One is probably the biggest community content creator at the moment, Shadowverse Evolve. And so the question is, if you only have 1 slot left, and I think Different Fight and Igni are the correct picks for the ambassador role, right? But if you only have that 3rd open slot, like where do you use that, right? Because you only have one chance. You only have one choice. So do you give that to someone who, is very organic to Shadowverse Evolve? So someone who pretty much only does content for Shadowverse Evolve, someone who comes from the scene, right? So has a relatively big following. I'm not talking about myself. I don't think I would be appropriate, given that we are not a huge channel by any means. We only have like 380 subs on YouTube, but from the perspective of like maybe a Team Burn One, right, where their channel has 1100, I think it's 1200 now subs, and since they only do Shadowverse Evolve content, like you can just straight up say they have the highest amount of viewers right now within Shadowverse Evolve, right? So do you give it to them because they are actually like a representation of the community, right? Or like they're a content creator that's completely native to Shadowverse Evolve. So that's the first consideration. And like obviously I'm not going to call out any drama or like, any like behind the scenes stuff. I don't really know too much about it, to be fair, but like I'm not going to like consider that. I'm just considering on the basis of strictly their audience and their achievements within Shadowverse Evolve, right? So that's the first perspective. And then the second one is, yes, Red Zone Rogue is probably one of the better candidates, if not the best candidate, from the perspective of someone who does actually create Shadowverse content, has a large following, right? But I do feel like he's a little bit more external. And I'm going to do an interview with him in the near future. So I'm going to learn a lot more about him, his motivations, like what makes him a great candidate for the Shadowverse Evolve Ambassador role. So like, take what I'm saying right now with a grain of salt, because I'm open to changing my mind, right? And basically, I do see a world where I think, man, there could be no better option than Red Zone Rogue. But at the moment, without having that research done, I'm just speaking like, musing through my thoughts, right? But I do wonder, like, if you are going to have essentially like someone who you're making an ambassador because you want to make use of their following. And again, I don't know if that's why Bushiroad did it. It's purely speculation, right? But if that were the case, then would it not be better to have saved that spot potentially to bring in like a popular VTuber, right? I mean, obviously they cost a huge amount of money in order to do it. But imagine if you got like a HoloLive, like, I don't know, let's just say Mori Calliope or something. Obviously, she would be prohibitively expensive, but they have done collaborations with the digital version of Shadowverse before, right? So, like, is it not potentially an option where you get like a popular VTuber to become the official ambassador, right? And then instead of looking at 18,000 subs, you might be looking more like 500 to 700k subs, right? And then if they're contractually obligated to create content for that, I mean, potentially that would be a bigger game for the scene. So, I mean, those are basically all my thoughts. I mean, overall, I'm okay with the Red Zone Rogue like move. I think it's reasonable. I like looking at all the metrics. I think if they wanted one now, it definitely makes sense. They're also casting the Grand Showdown, which is something I saw recently. So, I mean, the decision is okay, but I do think it was reasonable to consider other options as well. So that's pretty much all my thoughts.
It makes sense to me because obviously he comes from a different background of like a different variety of card games, right? So maybe if they were trying to pull players from a different audience to Shadowverse, it would make more sense for them to grab someone that does other things apart from just Shadowverse or even just Bushiroad games, right? So from that perspective, it makes sense, right? And it's not like if they didn't pick X or Y, it's not like they will stop doing their content anyway. So
that's true. That's true. I do agree with that, but I guess like it just goes back to my point around, you know, the fact that there is only one slot for that ambassador role. So is that what you're committing to? And like they have committed to it now, so I don't expect that to change. I think, you know, this is now our third ambassador, and I have seen him do like a lot of like, you know, Shadowverse content recently. So I'm doing like a stream with Igni, like playing the game like between the two of them. So look, honestly, I think yeah, like time will tell, you know, how effective of a pickup it is. I think it's definitely a reasonable pick. What's your thoughts on like the fact that you could almost call him like the ambassador of like a game like Grand Archive? Like I think he's actually just like straight up like the biggest content creator for that game, if I'm not mistaken. Like, do you think like it's like I won't say conflict of interest, right? Because I don't think there is really a conflict of interest, but like, do you feel like you know, does Shadowverse Evolve benefit more from that, or like does it detract from Shadowverse Evolve that he has affiliations with those other card games in such a strong capacity?
I feel like they would just work in tandem. Like they would only benefit for each other. Like I don't think there would be any like negative effect towards either games. Like the only thing that would affect them was like maybe if they'll just have to work out with scheduling. Like obviously they couldn't be able to. They like want him as a commentator or like shoot anything, right? They can't schedule the events on the same day or the same time period, right? But apart from that, I only see it as a benefit to both parties.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting take actually. I think I do agree with that. Obviously, like, you know, we play different card games as well, right? And I mean, at least in my case, like, you know, me playing other card games hasn't stopped me from you know, committing to Shadowverse Evolve as like my primary card game. And then also like, you know, I create content for Shadowverse Evolve, but I don't create content for like the other card games I'm playing, right? So yeah, I think your point makes sense. I think overall, I'm fine. I'm fine with the Red Zone Rogue one, but I thought it was just an interesting topic. You know, there's definitely like a bunch of like kind of different perspectives that you can have, and like I think there's a lot of nuance like when it comes to this particular topic.
I mean, there's a lot of other like metrics and yeah, a lot of other things that probably wasn't even mentioned here that you know, that they go over back at HQ or whatever, right? So like there's probably heaps of underlying things that would never make sense to us, or something like wouldn't feel relative to us, but maybe it's important for them. Like for all we know, maybe they did contact VTubers or like even like, you know, bigger content creators, but maybe, you know, they see something else that we don't see, right?
Yeah, or maybe like the price is prohibitive, or like they said no, or whatever. I mean, we don't know the inner workings.
Could even be like a time constraint thing. Like maybe like if you said like if you get a VTuber, right? Obviously a VTuber is a variety taken to a whole new level, right? Like maybe they can't dedicate themselves to being like a TCG ambassador or whatever, right? But with at least with Red Zone Rogue, we know that his channel is focused on card games, right?
Yes. Yeah. So you have no like he's already fully committed to physical trading card games, so you know that he's very likely to follow through on his commitments. Yeah.
Yeah. Like maybe you know, they need to meet a requirement of like a certain passion stat, so to say, right?
Yeah.
Because he's already been doing it for this long. You know, he's like dedicated for however long X amount of years, right? But with like maybe like a VTuber or something, maybe they couldn't commit to being like, you know, loving like a card game for like 3 or 4 years, right? Or how many years, whatever.
That's true. And to be fair, like obviously, set 6 is nearly like upon us, and the Japanese version of set 6, it actually had VTubers. I can't remember which one. So it's like a dragon one, and I think it's Chloe, I think, and there was like a rune one as well. So those were like the collab HoloLivers. And then for
I mean,
English,
they
it
even
seems to
had.
be. Mhm.
I was gonna say even for Japanese, they already had a whole live collab all the way back in set 2, right, in Japan.
Correct. Yeah, so set 2 and set 6, and it looks like we're not getting a collab for either of those for set 2 or 6 in English. So potentially, like, it did just fall through. Like, it's not even possible. But yeah, I mean, you could be right. I do actually think that he is most likely the best candidate for the English ambassador role, especially if there was a time constraint. I don't think there was a time constraint, to be fair. But if there was one, then I think, based on the information that we have available right now, Resident Rogue is probably the best one.
Yeah, and I was gonna mention something else, but maybe it's not worth it. But I was just gonna say, like, obviously they did have like a VTuber collab with what's the
Millie?
the
Millie Coffee?
magic girl, yeah, Millie, right? And obviously with what's happened recently, it hasn't looked too good on that, right?
It would
Like,
actually be really funny. Could you imagine if she was like supposed to be like the original ambassador, and then because of all the controversy around Niji Sanji, they actually opted not to go ahead with that, and then they picked Red Zone Rogue. I'm just spitballing here. Like, I don't think that's actually what happened, but
obviously.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
I can't
wouldn't
even
that be
say
interesting?
if I don't know if that was like if they even it's hard to say, right? Obviously, it's just you're just spitballing here, but I don't know. I don't want to have any comment on that because I have literally no idea.
No, I have no idea, guys.
Whatever they're thinking about, yeah.
Like, to be clear to the audience, I have no idea. Like, yeah, it's literally just I have no idea on the inner workings. So it's complete speculation. Okay, anyway, let's move on to the next topic. So current meta. So we're now pretty deep into set 5. I think less than a month to go until set 6. So I don't think the meta has changed too much from my initial predictions. So the major tournaments for the set, I think there was one in Vietnam, the BSF. So I think it was like a 30-person tournament, something like that. And then obviously we had the SVE Master Championship. So that one we had 77 players, I think. And so that one, fortunately for me, so I put in a tier list at the start of the expansion, and pretty much every deck, I think literally every deck in tier 1 had top 8 representation. So and I think it was 0 decks outside the tier 1 made it to top 8. So oh wait, no, it was Ramp Dragon by Prussia. That's like the one problem with my tier list, but apart from that, it was pretty accurate tier list, I think. And I still have Ramp Dragon in tier 3 because I think Prussia is just built different, to be honest. I haven't seen that deck pop off anywhere else. So but he is built different. I think he was a good pick for the tournament meta, but yeah, I haven't seen anyone else have success with it. I mean, maybe they have been, but it's not being played in my meta, that's for sure. But yeah, I guess like in terms of like the meta overall, I don't think it's changed much. I mean, it's developed a little bit more. It's a bit more abyss, but I don't really feel like I mean, because the tier list I had was based off the Japanese meta, right? And they'd already gone through that meta for like 3 months or whatever. So a lot of the time, it's not going to change much between the English meta and the Japanese meta, unless it's like a specific restriction or ban that is in place, which obviously in this case, we're exactly the same as the Japanese meta. And interestingly enough, I think I should actually speak about the Chinese version. Actually, we should probably have an entire section about the Chinese version at some point. But
yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, so just to give like context to people, in the English version and the Japanese version, they're the same meta. So you can basically just net deck like the Japanese players if and like have a pretty good result. But in the Chinese version, what they're doing is they're releasing set 1 as per normal. But what's happening is that their next set is going to be combining set 2 and set 3. And so if you think about it chronologically, right, is supposed to come out between set 2 and set 3. So these are like meta-defining cards like Aguri Cap, Agnes Tachyon, just, the Uma deck in general, Asian Flash, what are some other ones? Marvelous Sunday, all these, like, and even Tokai Teo was pretty good during set 3, I think, as well. And like all of these cards, which are like meta defining in their own ways, are not present for this expansion. So you're getting like a very different metagame where the Chinese players can't actually net deck anyone. It's going to be a completely Chinese original meta, right? And I think that's really cool because one of the problems that we have in the English version, I feel, is that the meta is too often solved immediately because the Japanese version has already had 3 months to play. And then every once in a while, you get one person who cracks the code, and like potentially they find out something that the Japanese completely overlooked. But like that's not very likely. So like I do feel like that's a bit of a shame with the English version. But yeah, the current meta hasn't really changed that much compared to the Japanese version. What do you think?
I did want to praise like their decision with releasing set 2 and 3. Going back to what you talk about, like for the Chinese version, right? I think it is really smart because when we got it, obviously they pre-nerfed Uma, right? But even then, it was still like top tier, like probably arguably first or second, right? And because of that, I feel like a lot of the cards they printed in set 3 was just skipped over because of how strong Uma was. Set 3 was kind of just like, if you can't deal with Uma, you're just not played, and it really devalued valued a lot of the cards, right?
Yeah, it did.
So now with set 3 being pushed before Uma, like we're gonna get to see like new metas and new strategies evolve around like these new cards where Uma isn't in existence, right? So like maybe we'll see like a lot more heroic or something, right?
The one thing that I'm not super sure on is I don't know if the Uma is like never coming out or if it's delayed, or if it is delayed to what set it comes out in. Because you know, like even now in set 5, like there's a number of Uma cards that still see play, and obviously I played Uma today at my Showdown event, right, to win the Atlas, and like I played Uma to win that event, right? But even outside of the Uma deck itself, like Forest, for instance, runs Marvelous Sunday, which is like one of the best bounce cards in the entire game, for sure. And then you Agnes Tachyon, for instance, in Bruin. Like, can Lashena even function without Agnes Tachyon? Like, probably not, right? So, like, there's like meta defining kind of an agree cap, obviously, for certain Dragon decks, even though right now, they don't run it. But I guess my point is simply that, you know, if it never comes out, or if it comes out very late, they'll get to experience a different meta for however many months it is. And I know they have an accelerated schedule too, which I think is good. So yeah, I do kind of wish that we had that. And one thing I would like to see actually is an acceleration of the Vanguard's collaboration set. So Carpi Vanguard is actually like really huge in Australia, and I think a lot of people would definitely give it a shot if you know, if they released like, you know, the Carpi Vanguard collaboration into English. And obviously the cards will be way too strong at this point in time, right? You're releasing like pretty much a set 10 like power level into like set 5, whatever. But I think even if you have to like have a preemptive ban list or restriction list to make sure the game functions, I think it would actually be really good to like have Vanguard. You can like progressively like, you know, ease the restriction list like set by set as the power level gets closer and closer. But then the other thing is that obviously if Vanguard comes out earlier, it'll give you the opportunity as an English player to experience a different meta than the Japanese version, because those Vanguard cards can be used in like set 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. And so like each of those sets will be distinctly different from the Japanese version, because you can use the best Vanguard cards for your generic class decks. And obviously the Vanguard deck itself will have an impact on what decks were good previously, even if like it had no other impact on like the initial class decks in that meta. So I think that would be cool. I don't think they're going to do it because English has rarely done anything different from what Japan has done, but we now know it is possible for Shadowverse Evolve to have that because of how the Chinese version is being run. Okay, so next we'll go on to the SVE Master Tournament. So we definitely had two different perspectives when it came to this tournament. So I know that you played in this tournament, and then I was doing a bunch of different things. I think I was doing adminning, casting, judging, social media, all of that type of stuff. So yeah, it was definitely quite the experience for me. But you were actually playing, and I think we had you on stream for one of the matches. I think I gave you a deck list before the tournament, but Why did you opt not to use my Uma deck list?
Honestly, I completely forgot that you sent me a list to to try out. So I just kind of went with my own gut and just did something else, which I obviously deeply regretted because I did it too hot that tournament.
Yeah, unfortunate. I think you ran into like a huge amount of Aegis Haven, right? And then you just got
That's right.
murked. Yeah. I do think
Yeah,
Aegis
pretty
Haven's
much.
a tough matchup for Uma. I think it is surmountable, but yeah, I mean to be honest, it's not many control Haven players in Sydney. I think they've been pushed out by the meta we have here. And for context, the person that won the entire tournament, he is actually from Sydney. So that means that my locals is the strongest in the world. Supposedly.
Basically.
Yeah, basically. Uh, allegedly. But yeah, I mean it's a good tournament. Like I'm happy with the turnout. Originally, like I thought originally my target was a lot higher. I think like we wanted to get 100 players, but then like after like considering it more, like the time zone was really bad for a number of countries, especially in Southeast Asia. And then also supposedly we scheduled it over like Anime Expo, which is like one of the biggest like expos for anime like in America. And like considering the demographic, which is obviously a lot of anime enthusiasts play Shadowverse, right? So I mean between the choice, I mean I think a lot of them did probably pick to go to the Anime Expo. So I think like 77 players is actually a really solid number. It was my first time like running like one of these tournaments, to be honest. Like even with the broadcast and all that, that was my first time doing the broadcast. I think like it was like literally like 2 or 3 hours before the event. Baz, who I was like co-casting with, he sent me like a link to like this program that apparently all the broadcasters use like when they're doing tournaments and stuff. And so like apparently every caster knows about it, but like if you're not part of the industry, there's no way you would know about it. So it was like scrambling last minute to like figure out the tech and then like basically using that on the event. And then even the tournament platform we use, like StarGG, I don't think we would use that again. I think fighting games like use that primarily. I know you're from FGC. Yeah. So
Yeah.
StarGG is like super popular for that, but
Yeah,
I just
StarGG
don't
or
think
challenge.
yeah. Yeah. I don't think card games like require that level of complexity. So like a standard battle fight would have probably been easier to use. Look, not that we're closing the door on a potential sponsorship from SmartGG in the future, KW. But like, no, but like, it probably wasn't appropriate for this tournament, and like, we didn't have the experience necessary to navigate it. Well, I mean, obviously, we fixed everything towards the end, but there were a lot of things that we had to like run around and get done and like pick up on the fly, and that's really fun. Like, I like the kind of it reminds me a little bit of like a startup culture, right, where one person juggles multiple different roles and then you have to pick up new skills really quickly, and then if there is a problem you have to fix that really quickly, right? I think like all of that is like stuff that an environment which I really like personally. And yeah, SVE Master as well, primarily it is actually like me and Baron. So Baron's like the developer, right? And then I have to generally do like a majority of the stuff outside of the coding. So um but like that kind of lean structure is something that like really appeals to me personally. Like I do pride myself on being able to adapt and learn pretty quickly. So and like that type of like variety is something that keeps me motivated and something that I enjoy. But yeah, how's your experience with the tournament?
I mean, I think the tournament was ran pretty smoothly, given like there was a lot of issues and unexpected things to happen on the day. I felt like you dealt with it within a timely manner, right? Like no one
Hmm.
had to wait any longer than like what 10 or 15 minutes for like most things, right?
Hmm.
In terms of my experience with the tournament, uh, I just want to clarify first and foremost, I hate webcam tournaments, right? That's just a me thing. I prefer playing it locally and physically because I like the community feel and be able to like talk and stuff like that. But I mean, don't let my opinion dissuade you from playing online tournaments, especially if you don't have like a locals to go to, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes webcam and online uh, duels is like the only way you can go.
Hmm.
I think my run was like it's like X3 or something like that. I can't remember how many rounds it went on for. It was like was it
Seven,
6 rounds
seven.
before
It's
7
seven.
rounds before Top Cut? Yeah, right. So I went 4-3. I'm pretty happy with my performance given that I was pretty rusty for the meta. And I played a very, very unoptimized Uma deck. It was worse than what I had going into with Worlds. I might as well have been playing the pre-banned list deck because even though I put in the unbanned cards, it performed much worse, and I was so uncomfortable with it. But given with all that, going at least with a positive score, I was happy with it, honestly.
Yeah, I actually think I actually legitimately feel like some of the unrestricted Uma cards are a little overrated. Like, no joke, I think it's a little overrated. I think Trial Initiation was probably like the more impactful like unrestriction, but like if you played Uma post nerf, like Dictus is obviously really strong, right? But you get these games where like you can't find an opportunity to play this card and feel good about it. Like maybe when you're going first and you get on turn 3, that's like probably the best you're gonna get. And then like I think like in the games I played today, there were a bunch of games where it's like I have to play it, but like this card doesn't do anything if I don't draw vodka. Like you essentially have to draw vodka. Like the card doesn't really do anything. To be fair, it is hard to clear. And then in some situations, like against Dragon or something, if you get this like to swing a face and then you block with the forte, swing back, and all that type of stuff, it's pretty good. But yeah, I think it was impactful in the Worlds environment where Dictus would have like really improved the match against Dragon, because then you don't have to worry about getting one shot by a Guri Cap at like 7 like chip damage from forte. But like even so, like I do think like the card surprisingly is clunky, and it does impact the way your deck plays out. But like overall, it's like obviously a buff, but I'm just saying it's not as big of a buff as I think people will assume.
Yeah, just like as people thought the Shenlong nerf would hurt the Dragon deck, when in fact it was. I mean, it was still dominating.
Still OP, yeah. Yeah, it's still OP. Yeah, I mean, it needed to be restricted, but it doesn't really like.
For sure.
Yeah, it didn't change that much.
But
I think.
Yeah, like people saying, "Oh, the deck is dead" and all that. It's like, yeah, come on.
Yeah.
There's more than just one or two cards, right?
I think that you had to train some people. I was on the train of like, if you don't ban Shenlong, the deck is broken. If you ban Shenlong, then it's just OP. Yeah, but like it's good that they nerfed it. But yeah, I mean, Uma Musume still strong, still strong. One of my favorite decks until set 6, where I think it will no longer be playable. Final chance, by the way, final chance. I did update a guide on the Patreon as well for Uma. Once again, a shameless plug. You could have used that, James. You could have used that. Yeah, did I send you a guide, or was it not done yet?
Yeah, you sent me a guide for a different class. Yeah, I would have needed that. I needed that guide before the.
What did I send you? Egghaven.
Egghaven. Oh, Aegis Haven. I can't remember. Yeah, something Haven.
Yeah, I think I said Egghaven. I haven't done Aegis Haven guide. But yeah, I think one thing that you mentioned that I thought was interesting is like, the reason why we ran this tournament primarily is basically to show Bushiroad in particular that there's a level of interest for online play, right? And I think there's 2 components here, right? The first one is like, as you said, the people who don't have major tournaments within their region or even locals, and so this is like the only way they can experience competitive kind of thrill of tournaments, right? But I think the other perspective is actually that for a majority of the world, actually, there were no major tournaments for the entire expansion. I think it's only Vietnam and two countries in Europe. Like they're the only 3 locations that have a BSF. So for most people, there is like no major tournament. Like the best they have is like a showdown event, right? I can't remember what it's called, like the shop showdown or whatever. Like it's one that replaced like the original one. And apart from that, like you can't make like 200 USD in one sitting, right? Like it's 500 USD price pool, obviously. And so like I think what we wanted to demonstrate is that there is like an appetite for these online tournaments, and like hoping that they can bring back like the Bushiroad online or something, or they can support the community in running these tournaments. So even if Bushiroad don't have the capacity to do it, someone else can, right? And like obviously we've seen Ignideus as well. He's doing like a online tournament as well, also with a 500 USD cash prize. And like I'm agnostic in terms of who Bushiroad, if they choose to support like the cash pricing or like the staffing cost or whatever of one of these tournaments. But I think it is a massive shame if like you release like an entire expansion and there's no major tournaments to play for. And I think like it doesn't cost much. It doesn't, it's not going to cost you much. It's basically a marketing expense, right? Or like, it's a retention tool to make sure like people will buy your product and they'll enjoy playing the game and they'll have stuff to look forward to grind for, to play test with their friends, all of that type of stuff, right? If you have no major tournaments, people aren't going to do that. And so I think like whatever it will cost, like I think to be honest, like this event we ran it completely voluntarily. That 500 USD didn't come from Bushiroad, guys. It was just literally out of pocket. Nobody made a profit off that event. I think the only people that really benefited were the community and to a lesser extent Bushiroad, right? Because we're improving the retention rate of Shadowverse Evolved. But what I hope will come out of that is that they'll see that there is like this demand for competitive tournaments in every expansion. And then obviously it's not feasible for them to run like a BSF or a BCS or a Grand Showdown every single month or every single 2 months even. But I think what is feasible is you help the community financially to run these tournaments online. And so like, anyone can participate in them if as long as like, the timing aligns with their time zone, right? Or their work schedule, whatever it might be. So that's something that I'm hoping like will pick up. And whether or not it does is like a different story. Here's hoping, but yeah, I did get a lot of positive feedback as well from people that participated in the tournament. I think a lot of people had fun. They had fun competing and like playing against people from across the world, because realistically you don't really get that opportunity at all apart from that Worlds, and that's like once a year, and that's only if you make it. And I think like with Grand Showdown, even though hypothetically it's open to worldwide, in reality though, like people aren't going to travel from like Australia to Grand Showdown in the US, right? It's literally not going to happen. So yeah, anyway, I think that's like, the key thing about SVE Master Tournament. So we're jumping into the Ignideus BO3 sideboard tournaments. That's happening next weekend. I know you're not planning on playing on it, but basically we can still talk about it. So BO3, and you get a sideboard in between two games. So it should change the meta quite a little bit, because basically, let's just imagine like there are certain decks which you can't necessarily fully tech for it in the main board, but then if in game 2 and 3 you can sideboard in like, I don't know, let's just say against Egghaven, sideboard in like Luriel, or something like that to like, reduce the burn damage, something like that. Like all of a sudden it has a big impact in the meta, and so decks that can't be easily targeted and can easily target other decks will gain an advantage. Right, so like that's like the main like concept behind like why this tournament is very different. And then also this is like one of the only tournaments that is like BO3. It's like, obviously most of the time like the format is actually BO1. And so like I think it's important for Ignideus tournament to do well, because if you consider the SVE Master Championship to be demonstrating that there's an appetite for online tournaments, Ignideus tournament is demonstrating the capacity for people to play BO3 or sideboard, right? And so like a lot of these changes have to start from somewhere, and one of the best ways to show that is basically, you run a tournament, you get like 100 people playing, and you go, 100 people play this, their feedback was universally positive, this is something that they want to see moving forward, and then maybe you might affect change in like a year or two with Bushiroad, and they might actually, allow for BO3 in like the top cut for BCS or something like that, right? So I mean, I guess only time will really tell, but that's my viewpoint in terms of the Ignideus tournament. What do you think?
Well, starting with the format itself, I personally think it should be the standard format. I think the only reason why they haven't adapted it to it is because of maybe Bushi is like they're worried about a lot of the games going to time, right? I think the time constraint is a big factor. So hopefully, the tournament that Ignideus is running, I hope like all of that gets sorted out and that everyone has like a reasonable time allocation, right?
75 minutes, by the way.
Oh, 75 minutes. Oh, that was a lot more than I assumed, because most BO3 card games, to my knowledge, is like 60 minutes with maybe 5-minute overtime. So 75 minutes is quite reasonable. and also sideboarding. Also, that one can go 50-50. Obviously, some more decks are going to benefit from others, right? So a lot of the decks are strong because sideboard isn't available to them, and also like let's say aggro blood or some aggro abyss is very strong because it's a BO1 and you can't do anything, right? If you match into it and you don't have the answers, you're just going to get crushed, right?
Right. Yeah. But then
Secondly,
obviously it's dead in like a BO3 format where if you verse aggro abyss and you side in like your angelic snipe, so you short fire bullets, then like just good game. Like see you later.
Deleted. But that's when they side in the one that takes the cards out of your deck. The what's that? The mask one.
The mask one. I can't
The
remember.
three costs take life. Look at opponent's hand from
Oh
set
yeah,
one.
yeah. Crazy Executioner, yeah. But that's played in the control-ish, like there's a deck called Silence Abyss, which like the card is actually played. Like basically it's like a mid-range control-y deck. Where like because you randomly discard cards, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense for them to put that in their sideboard, right? Now that they know their opponent is siding cards against you, now you can put in a card that can directly target those sideboard cards.
Yeah, but I think the issue with that is like if they're gonna surefire bully you in turn 2, and that's when you lose. Like it's not about the turn. Yeah, like if you rip it out in turn 3, it's like no longer relevant.
At least you can hit like the stronger like AOE board clears, right? That's always like more.
Oh, you like conflagration,
or like a Gene or something, right?
Yeah. I mean that's just an example. I think one of the decks that will get impacted a lot is actually Egghaven, because that's a deck where the tech cards that are good against Egghaven like usually don't do anything in the other matchups. And so like Egghaven's good because most of the time the decks you're playing against can't reasonably mainboard those because they would lose to every other deck in the format.
Right.
I actually posted an entire article. Sorry. Again, I'm gonna plug my Patreon. So I posted like a sub-only Patreon article. So some people actually saw it for free because we were testing a new feature on the website. So I think it was on the website for free for like 10 hours, something like that. I don't know how many people actually viewed it. But anyway, now it's exclusive to Patreon supporters. So I think it's like over 1,000 words on like pretty much every deck I expect to see like get impacted. So like, you know, Egghaven, Aegishaven, Usurpation Sword, bunch of tier 2 decks. Like I go through it in detail, but well, this podcast is long enough as it is already. You're also getting free info. It's if you read between the lines of what James and I are saying. But sorry, I did cut you off there. Please continue.
I wasn't gonna say anything else important. I was just gonna like reinforce your optimism of like them maybe seeing what you guys are doing for the community and maybe like back that, because I do have something from experience that I've noticed from a separate card game. I think it happened like maybe 1 or 2 months ago. It was a separate card game, right? And it's only being supported in, I think the only majors. I only had it in America and OCE, right? And then they didn't realize that Italy had a big fan base and community for this particular card game, right? And they hosted a card game, right? It wasn't for any cash prizes. It was just for a few boxes, or I think it might have been one case split between top 4. I think the tournament had like close to maybe 70 or 80 players just for like prizing was just for a case of cards. And this was even webcam, right? This was like people actually came down to this city to play, right?
Right.
And because of that, because of that overwhelming success, like literally like 2 or 3 weeks later, they put a major in their region, like officially, officially licensed by that card game
company. Okay.
Yeah, the company, right?
I like how like earlier we were like literally saying the name of the card games we were playing, and then like now you're just like censoring it. That is fine. Yeah, continue.
Yeah. So I'm just like reinforcing. Like I feel like that's something that can definitely happen. Like they definitely will look like at something like that. Whether they act upon it is like, you know, it's entirely up to them. But you know, just saying that like those things do happen, right?
Yeah, they could do, right? And we don't know if like they're even able to do it. Like, does it make sense financially? Is it fair in relation to like the other card games? Because obviously Shadow vs. Bulk is only one IP that Bushiroad manages, right? So like in some cases, if they do it for SVE, do they have to do it for Cardfight Vanguard or Weiss, for instance, right? So there are considerations like that, I would assume, but yeah, overall, like it can't be a bad thing, I think, to run these community tournaments and show, hey, there is an interest, and if they don't think it's worth it to do it, that's one thing, but at least you're putting the question and you're putting the data there for them to base their decision off, right? And like that's the only way you can really affect change, right? If it doesn't work, then unfortunate, we just have to carry on with what we're doing. But you know, the reason why I do these things, right, or why community members do these things, because you know, at the end of the day, like we want this game to succeed as well, right? It's not just Bushiroad, and like I think it would go a long way. I feel if like Bushiroad has that trust within their community, and like it's a two-way street, right? Where it's like community is doing it to help Bushiroad in the community, and then Bushiroad does things to help community and Bushiroad themselves. It's like it's a win-win relationship, right? I think the issue is specifically with Shadowverse Evolve, it's such a small card game. It's not one of the bigger ones like your Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, or you know, Magic the Gathering, right? Where you know, honestly, like at that point in time, it's like it's so big that like you know anything could work. But like if a card game store wants to run their own like massive dual case tournament or whatever, and they can get 100 people from locals, they don't need any support whatsoever from the parent company, right? But for a game like Shadowverse Evolve, like these initiatives, they're just limited in scope. Like if I put in like a $2,000 cash prize tournament in Sydney tomorrow, like I have no confidence that I would be able to make that money back. Like I probably couldn't. It's always going to be a losing proposition in terms of the amount of money you put in and the money you can get back, right? And the thing is, like, who's actually benefiting from that? It's like the community benefits, but then you're expecting, sorry, the community benefits, right? And it's Bushiroad that benefit because you're keeping the community alive, which leads to higher participation, higher product sales, you know, higher retention rate, all of that kind of stuff, right? But as a TO, like you don't make anything back because you're spending thousands of dollars on the prize pool and then a couple $100 like in terms of like staffing, or maybe like a couple thousand in the venue, etc., right? And so you pay all this money, you don't make any of that back. It's like basically a charity, right? And if you have a lot of money, that's fine. I don't have a lot of money. I'm decidedly middle class, right? I think middle class is the category I'm in. I'm not wealthy. I'm not poor either, but I can't afford to run like, you know, multi-$1,000 cash prize tournaments, especially if I have to pay people to judge a tournament, you know, do travel, etc. Like it's just not possible. And so for a game like SVE, the only way that these community tournaments can actually work is either you have some very rich community members that are willing to fund you, which practically don't exist, by the way, right? Or Bushiroad help fund that, right? And that's the only path that I think is like actually viable and makes sense, because Bushiroad should have the incentive to help the community like financially to run these, right? And it's not to like make someone profit, right? It's just to make them break even, right? Like I'm willing to do these things on a break even basis, right? Not to make a profit, just to break even. And then I'm willing to put in my time and energy to create something that's great for the community, right? But Bushiroad, they can afford to pay this because it is actually affecting the sales of the product, not only in that region, but potentially worldwide, right? Because say I run a tournament in Australia and like all the Australians play it, right? Then that means that all the Australians there are going to be more engaged with the product and they're actually going to buy more booster boxes, right? And then that money, every booster box that sells essentially, right? Or like, you know, in the future, every additional booster box that sells, that money goes directly into Bushiroad's pocket. So them investing into the grassroots and community scene actually ends up in Bushiroad making that money back, right? Even though the game is small. But it doesn't work the other way around. Us running a tournament out of our pocket never makes the money back for us. So the model can only work if the game is either very big, like the big free card games, something like that, or like One Piece or whatever, like whatever you might want to call it, right? It only works if your game is very big, or if the publisher themselves assist you. And that's like where I think like a lot of people are going to end up in, right? And so I think the ball is really in Bushiroad's court, like as in Ignideus, I think he actually publicly said he's not doing it as his ambassador duty. He's doing it completely out of pocket. not getting any support, I think, from Bushiroad, right? Which is fine. It's what we did as well, right? We didn't get support from Bushiroad either. So we're putting our money and our time, you know, and like our name on the line, right? And we're dedicating like 1 to 2 days of our time to creating these events. And it's like, that's only going to happen like 1 or 2 times, guys, right? It's not going to continually happen. It's more like, this is us like putting our neck on the line, going like in good faith, like, look, we're doing this for free and we're showing you how effective it can be. And then what you choose to do with that, if you choose to ignore it or you think it's not worth it, fine, then nobody's going to do it because the model doesn't work, right? Or you can say, these 2 tournaments were a success, and as a result, we'd like to help you guys continue running these tournaments in the future, right? And then from there, everyone wins. Community wins, Bushiroad wins, you know, even the tournament organizer can win. I mean, again, in my case, or like Igni's case, right? Like, we don't need to make money off the event. Like, well, if we were to make money off the event, we'd be talking like, you know, minimum wage for our time. You know what I mean? Like, like realistically, like minimum wage for our time. Even the judges will probably like work for minimum wage, but like there has to be that minimum wage, right? It's not anyone being greedy. It's just people can't work for free in today's society. We've all got bills to pay, mortgages to pay, whatever it might be for
Cases
any
to buy.
specific person. Oh yeah.
Cases to buy.
Well, cereals to buy. Oh, did I tell you? I bought 2 alternate fairy tokens today because I was so tilted. I was like, I need something. I need something to like wash away the pain. So I think I spent. I bought them at 350 AUD each. So look, it's probably shouldn't be spending so much money on cards, but it does make me feel a little bit better. So okay, anyway, that is effectively like our view on like the recent community tournaments, both from SVE Master and also the Ignideus tournament. Do hope the Ignideus tournament does well. If you guys are watching this podcast before the Ignideus tournament, I do recommend that you guys sign up that tournament. It'll only be a good thing if he has good participation numbers, like, to be honest. You know, not only from the perspective of BO3, like possibility in the future, but also because like we want to show them that online tournaments are a viable method of engagement, and like it's something that can make Bushiroad the money back if they were to choose to invest in it in the future, right? And of course, the final decisions with Bushiroad, but we got to do what we can as a community. We got to like, you know, try our best until eventually we figure it's no longer viable. Okay. All right, next tournament. So not next tournament, next topic. Gloryfinder release. So Gloryfinder officially released. I think it's like nine days ago at this point. So look, this time I'm gonna let you start. What do you think about Gloryfinder? How's it going in your community?
So from what I can see, and from what I've heard from others, it has had a pretty, I want to say like a mild turnout rate, right? Mm-hmm. So like we get maybe around like maybe 12 people at our locals on a good day, right? And then like maybe only half of those people even bother to try Gloryfinder. The format itself it's interesting. It does bring something new to the table, right? But I don't know if that's something that the fans were asking for. That's just feedback coming from like my part of the community, and yeah. Like I said, only about like maybe 25 to about 50% interest rate in the first couple of in the first week of like the Gloryfinder coming out.
And were there new players from like other card games or anything like willing to try it out, or was it just Shadowverse more?
It was mostly people that were already playing Shadowverse, and just trying to try a new format to kind of like mix things up, like if they were bored of the current format or whatever. I did hear that there was a few new players specifically just to play this mode because it was more of like a board game kind of like module, right? Where it's like instead of like a 1v1, it's kind of like a free-for-all, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think in our area it's been primarily people who are already playing Shadowverse as well. I don't think I saw any new players, but I have heard that it has been selling reasonably well, and I don't know if that's because it's Shadowverse of all players just running the promos, because like the promos are really good. It's like Merlin, Bellringer Angel, Olivia, even like Israfil, like from set 4, which was like a chase card at some point. But so like that kind of pays for the product, and then like you're basically getting the Gloryfinder stuff as like a free like, you know, just added on top of it, right? And I think like people are just willing to try it in general if they're already a Shadowverse of all player. But I think like I feel like the main reason they did this was to get an external kind of like party in. But I think the challenge with Gloryfinder, in my opinion, and also like one thing I will complain about a little bit is I didn't like how there were 0 foils in the entire Gloryfinder set. I don't know if you heard about this in Melbourne.
No,
but
I didn't hear about it.
Okay, so basically when you buy Gloryfinder, none of the cards are foil at all. 0. Including like the new cards. So that was a little bit disappointing from my perspective. I don't know if they needed to do it to save money or something, like, but yeah, it was just that was something like I didn't feel like was necessary for them to like, you know, save money on, to be honest. Even like foil cards make people happy, man. And so like I think like, you know, at least like 2 or 3 foil cards, or like at least just for like there's some iconic cards, or even the leaders, something like that. That would have been like a good, that would have been pretty cool. But they opted not to do that for whatever reason, which is sort of disappointing. But anyway, so back on topic. For me personally, I think what I saw a lot of was like a lot of people just can't be bothered building the decks as well. Because like you have so many choices, and then you have to actually find cards from like various different sets. And then like the synergies aren't super obvious. So a lot of the time you're just like, oh, I'm just putting in like good cards. And like also I think the game balance, it could be improved a bit. I think one of the cards which I think should be banned, or at least errated, is EveAzn. Like literally like from the couple of times I played Gloryfinder, my main issue was like my card is broken. And like it's not in like the traditional like, oh, I play this card, I win straight away. Although that does happen, to be fair. But with one game I played where, so this card called Burst Shot, and it's like it does damage. You pick 3 targets and it can be the leader as well. And then you do damage to the enemy leader based on the number of cards in your hand. And then what I did was like I played a card called Latham, which like lets your hand size be like infinite. And then like maximum hand size is no longer like a cap, right? And so like and I put like down a few amulets on the board, like Harvest Festival, like Sacred Plea, etc., right? And then what I did was it was like 8 mana turn or something like that. I played a EveAzn using the Evo point, dropped everyone's HP to 10, cracked all of my amulets on the board, go to 10 cards in hand. And I played Burst Shot and like literally killed 3 players in 1 turn. And it's like but like the thing is like obviously I didn't work again. I got ganged up on the next round and I lost. I was the first one out. But anyway, but like I think that kind of like gameplay is not fun. And I think like, you know, it's EveAzn dropping everyone's HP to 10. What happens realistically in a lot of games is like your early game doesn't matter. Like basically, I might do a video on this later actually, but basically the issue with the EveAzn is that when this card comes down and you evolve it, everyone's HP goes down to 10. You start with 30. So it's like there's not even any point in attacking the enemy leader, like in this entire format, which goes contrary to like how the game should be played, right? You should feel like you should attack your enemy leader, like drop the HP down, right? And then like your health is like a resource. But it's not really, because like you're just waiting until the first person plays EveAzn, and then everyone's HP is just 10. Like I just don't think that's healthy for the format, and I think it bottlenecks a lot of the you know, the gameplay in terms of Gloryfinder. So I want to see that card nerf for sure. But yeah, like aside from that, like I also think there's an issue with like stores in general not really understanding what Gloryfinder is. And so you can run like Gloryfinder tournaments or you can run locals. And then in reality, what happens is like some people aren't willing to even buy Gloryfinder in the first place. So it's like, and then like the way the tournaments are set up is a bit weird. Like Gloryfinder is inherently not a competitive, it's not meant to be a competitive format, right? But then you have these tournaments, and then like it's sort of weird to like expect people to pay like the regular tournament entry fee for like a tournament where like obviously like the stores, they still have to find out who's the winner, so they give them more packs, right? But like that incentivizes people to try hard, and then you don't want to try hard in a casual format, and then also you can't, even if you were a try hard, it's like it's not even up to you whether or not you win or lose the game, because 90% of the time, if like people perceive you as a threat, they'll just all gang up on you. And then also like people just get salty as well. Like if you're gonna get ganged up on in like a competitive tournament, right? Or like where the prizes actually change based on your finishing, then like, do you know what I mean? Like you just be like, someone will get salty at the fact that like it's not even to do with skill. Sometimes it's like politics. Can't help the fact that if you go to locals, some people are going to be friends. How do you get around the fact that like if you get into a table with like 3 people that are like all friends with each other, and then you're the only one who's like outside that group, like of course they're not going to like, well I mean like they could, but like they might just all gang up on you first. They're like, what type of experience is that going to be, right? And like of course it's fine if there's no pricing involved, but like when you make it that the stores run the tournaments and they have to get $15, like there needs to be very clear instruction for the stores, like, hey, the pricing needs to be the same for every player, right? And like to be fair to Bushiroad, I think like there is no winner gets an extra promo or winner gets like this extra pack, whatever. I think like it's actually, the instruction is actually random door prize or something like that. It's like a lottery draw. But I don't think they really thought through how to integrate the Gloryfinder format with the tournament play structure. I think like it was intended to be like Gloryfinder events in the Bma app are there primarily as like a meetup, and so like when you go there, it's like you're finding other people to play Gloryfinder with. But what you're actually getting in reality is stores signing up locals and Gloryfinder on the same day, and then you're splitting the player base, and then people will just like opt to just play like one event over the other. And like when you consider the factors I mentioned earlier, is like people just usually pick normal constructed. And so like I don't know. I think it was a worthwhile kind of it was a worthwhile product to release. I think especially after seeing like how well like Commander does in like Magic, right? But I also feel that maybe there needed to be a different approach. I'm not sure, but I don't know. Like I don't feel like it really took off that hard in Sydney, and to be honest, I don't think it will. I think Sydney was already kind of small for Shadowverse Evolve, and needing 4 players when your locals are only getting like, depending on the day, right, like 7 to 11 players or whatever. It's like you sometimes you have to split it up so you have like 3 players playing in like on a table, and like that's not how it's really intended. Even though you can play 3-player Gloryfinder, obviously it's designed with 4 people in mind as well. So yeah, it's just a weird thing. I think also, like you said, like it seems like it's mostly Shadowverse Evolve existing players playing, and so I don't know. It's just a mix, like anyway, it's not my problem to solve. I hope it does well, but yeah, but it's not my problem to solve.
Like the only thing I can think of with their marketing strategy with them releasing this product was them purely focusing on this as the gateway to playing the actual Shadowverse 1v1 constructed format, right? But it doesn't seem like well, from our location to be the case, right?
Yeah, look, I don't know what the actual intention of this product is meant to be, right? But from my perspective, the business case for Gloryfinder is like you want to tap into a market that doesn't currently exist, right? So you want people to join the game because of Gloryfinder, and then that means like, you know, they'll buy cards both for the 1v1 version and also for Gloryfinder. And I don't really feel like it's brought in that many. I mean, maybe it's different for America or something like that, but I also do feel like some stores probably feel a little bit burned from Shadowverse as well, like especially the ones where Shadowverse didn't take off for them. So they're going to be reluctant to commit to buying like cases of Gloryfinder, right? And they're going to be hesitant to promote it as well. Like I think, you know, if it were like a standalone title and like, you know, stores were like willing to give it like a fresh look, then like they would promote it and like build a scene. But I just don't know if that's realistic in the current environment. But I don't know. I think it's something I want to see do well, but I just don't know if it was done properly. Plus, like one Gloryfinder deck in Australia, it costs like $160, I think. Like for a case.
Yeah, which is more than a box itself, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's just very expensive in general, right? And like, I don't know what type of manufacturing costs go into it, but you know, what I would have probably liked to have seen, to be honest, is like, again, I don't know manufacturing costs, right? So like, maybe it does actually cost them $100 or something to create the product, or like $80 to create the product, and then they sell it to the distributor or whatever for 100. Distributor sells it to 120 to the stores or whatever, and the stores make a $40 profit or whatever it might be, right? But like maybe it does cost $100, but to be honest, it looks like it's just a box with like 200 cards. And so my question is like, why didn't they just do like a, yeah, they print the cards. Again, I don't know the manufacturing costs, but like, so say, I think it could have been a loss leader. I think like this is like one of those products where like you can lose money with the expectation that by making it a lower price point, you get new players in who will eventually buy your other product for the real game, right? So you should be okay with losing money for Gloryfinder because you're basically subsidizing the cost to get new players in. And if they enjoy Gloryfinder, they'll probably try out the 1v1 tournament because like there's BCFs, right? And like they might be like, oh, okay, I'll buy a box or two of like, you know, the new set that's coming out because I can include that into my Gloryfinder deck, right? And so I think the way you accomplish this, right, and I think this is probably where Cygames and Bushiroad tripped up a little bit. And again, I don't know the internal development process or anything like that, but I think where they tripped up was like, we need these cards, like the Gloryfinder experience doesn't work if you don't have cards like Merlin to search any spell in your deck, or like Maid Leader to search, or like all of these random like legends that like are very impactful, right? And so they probably thought, well, if we release all of these cards, then it's going to crash the economy if we sell the product for too low of a price. Because at the moment, Gloryfinder costs $160, and the cards inside Gloryfinder, at least in their like legendary forms, it's probably worth around $160. So if they did it any lower than that, it would crash the price of the market, right? So I think the solution to that problem is all they needed to do was reprint all of the cards, like, you know, Merlin, Lucifer, or like all of these random cards, right? Have them in like whatever rarity you want, and let's have a bottom. This card cannot be used outside of Gloryfinder. And so if your product actually only costs like $15 to manufacture, you can just sell like that product for $20, $25 in the store. And like that's a price point that is so low for a board game that like literally anyone would be willing to like, you know, someone would be willing to punt 30 or 40, like even $50, right? For a brand new board game. Like what's Gloryfinder? Like what's Shadowverse Gloryfinder? And they play it and the game is so fun. They go, holy shit, I want to buy Omens Eternal so that I can have all the cards from there. Or I want to buy Paragons of the Colosseum, like BPO6. And then like, you know, that profit that they make from people buying that product is where Gloryfinder is making you money. Right? So I don't understand personally. I don't think it's possible that the manufacturing cost of Gloryfinder was actually $100. I don't think it's possible. Have you seen the box? Oh wait, I've got the box. I'll show you the box.
I've seen the box. Yeah, bring that anyway.
Oh, my camera's not. Okay, there we go. It looks like this, and to be fair, I've like storing my tokens in here. But anyway, so like, and then inside, like, it had like this divider, right? And then it's got 4 like dividers, and then basically like, you know, it has one of each deck in there. And like, they're just cards, dude. Like, there's no way the cards cost that much to manufacture. All they need to do is like print 4 decks and then shove it in there, and then like have the paper mat and like the tokens or whatever. And there's no shot it costs $100. You know, probably doesn't even cost 20. Again, I'm talking out of my mouth, you know, because I don't know the manufacturing process. But my point remains, even if it did cost them like $30 to manufacture, and like, you know, get everything out, distribute it, etc., like the price should probably be more like $50 rather than $160. And then yeah, you should be willing to lose money and Gloryfinder because it'll make you money back later.
Especially when you take out the fact there's like no foils or anything like that, right?
Yeah, like this is a chance for like a second resurgence of Shadowverse. Again, like, I mean, the problem with this is like, me saying it now, like it just feels a little bit like, what's the word? Like, they can't change it anymore. You know what I mean? Like what's done is done. And so like this is sort of like criticism, but it's not constructive. And like I feel like this is like applies to a lot of like various things when it comes to Shadowverse Evolved. It's like there are things that happen, and then like I can say this is why X or Y didn't work, and then here's how you could do it better for next time. But like the thing is, like, first of all, like they're not going to really consider like, you know, like, and even if they did, it would take them too much like approval time and like all of that stuff to fix the issue, so to speak. Like for example, like let's just say like the promo choice for like a certain event might be like really poor. So I think last month for the final Showdown event, like the regular monthly one, they had like really like terrible like promo picks, like a Penguin Wizard for participation. I think Sacred Plea for top 8 and then Lucifer first. And like the value disappeared instantly because Lucifer is no longer played. And because of the volume of showdowns they had, a card was never going to be worth much in the long term, right? So we had nobody wanted to go to those events like after the first few because they had free Sacred Plea. They didn't care about Lucifer. And then like didn't care about Lucifer, and then Penguin Wizard, like, you know, I kid you not, after like the first 3 tournaments I played, I had 12 Penguin Wizard. And the card can't be sold. You can't use 12. It's just literally sitting there. I would probably be better off just selling them. No, sorry, I can't sell them. I would be better off just throwing them away to save cardboards, to save space in my room. Right. Like, these are the types of issues. And like, I can, but like, I don't have the power, like, to affect change. I can tell them, hey, this isn't working. And then like, I can even tell them step by step how to solve these problems. But like, would they listen to like the solution? Like, probably not. Like, they probably won't. Like, they don't, I don't know. By the way, for what it's worth, my solution will be this. Like, if you want to do it, you do monthly showdown tournaments, right? And you do like seasonal packs for the showdowns, and the participation, you get a tournament pack, right? Of like one of like 7 different cards, right? And like they can even be cards that already exist, already have a foil version. All you have to do is like put like a stamp on it or whatever. It was just because like, you know, Showdown set 3 or like Showdown Omens Eternal, whatever, right? It's literally a badge, like a stamp, right? And it will be like marginally more rare than like the original version of that card. So it could like literally already exist as like a premium foil, but it's just a premium foil with a stamp or something like that. Or it could be like a card that doesn't have a premium foil yet or whatever. But the idea is you make it so that it's impossible for you to enter one tournament and then like already have what you came for. Like, it incentivizes people to go to many tournaments like they do for promo series or whatever, every series, right? You want to make them go to every one of these tournaments, and if you can only get it from the showdown, what you're creating is a situation where the store can be confident that if there are Shadowverse Evolved players, they will come to your showdown event, right? So your locals will be a regular one, and then you'll get like 10 people average, right? And like, you know, on a week-by-week basis, some people won't come, some people will. But for your showdown, if you do a structure like that, where they pretty much have to attend every single one, like instead of getting 10 people, those stores are going to get like spikes of like 25 people, right? And then that's the type of thing where it's like the store can feel confident, because even if they get these lull periods where they have like 5 or 10 people, right? But like then they get these peak periods where it's like double the amount of people, right? But you can't have that if your showdown event, the pricing is irrelevant to people after they've already attended 2 or 3 out of like a possible 20 something, right? And people just won't go to them. And then the other thing is like the champion promo needs to be better. Like Lucifer Super Rare should be a prize in set 1, not in set fucking 6 or 5, whatever, right? Like, it's already useless. You can play it in like 1 or 2 decks, 2 decks tops, and it's like 1 or 2 copies total, right? There's no market for it. People can't make money off it. And like, you need to be able to make some kind of money in order for people to be incentivized to come to these tournaments. Like, transport fee is not free. Tournament entry is not free. Time is not free. You need to make it worthwhile for people to go to your tournaments. And so, and again, like, this is so easily solved if they literally just like go to a player and they go, hey, do these prizes seem good to you? And like, if they had asked that before they selected it, and like, I'll be more than happy to give them that feedback, by the way. If they go, hey, Bma, what do you reckon about these 3 cards for the promos? And like, I could tell them, oh, nobody's going to want this, or that card's not a good pick. Have you considered this? right? And it can be like a back and forth conversation. I don't have this conversation with them, by the way. Of course, I don't expect them to, but I'm just saying, like, they need to have a conversation with someone, right? I don't know who they're having that conversation with. They probably don't have that conversation. And that's why we have these issues with, like, the pricing occasionally not being very good. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's not incentivizing people to play. Same with Gloryfinder, by the way. Like, you know those tournaments I was talking about earlier? Nobody has an incentive to play the Gloryfinder tournament because they don't care about getting the dragon rending quake, whatever I think it is, or like the foil version of like the Advent of Legend or whatever. Like, nobody cares. And like, these are the type of things where like, who are like their market research participants? Because they could ask me, they could ask you, they could ask like any of the 10 people in my locals, hey, would you be interested if these were the pricing that we're putting out in 6 months' time? And like, they could do a survey, they could ask them directly, run interviews, focus groups, whatever, right? And like, I think if they did that, they would have like a pulse, like they would know how the community is feeling and therefore deliver value to them based on what they want. And I don't think, I don't know, like, it just feels like I'm criticizing them too much. Like, I know they're trying their best, but it gets kind of hard, like, when, you know, you see a lot of missed opportunities. It's what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well.
I didn't want to add anything onto that because you pretty much spoke for the both of us, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, and to be fair, to be fair to Bushiroad, like these prices, like for the Showdown challenge, whatever, like because these are only once every 3 months, like these are actually good prices, like legitimately. Like this card actually goes for like 10 USD, or at least prior to the reprint. Like the base version of this in a set goes for 10 USD. So like reprinting this actually makes sense. Plus, like, you're not destroying the economy because stores can only run this once ever, right? Same with like Dark Hours as well. Like this card, actually, it's like, it's probably like equally playable as Lucifer, but it's an alt art. Plus, like, the supply is 1/3 of what Lucifer is, right? So the value will hold a lot better. And then same with like King Elephant, right? King Elephant's like a super meta card right now. You only need one, to be fair, but if your game grows, like, and only 8 of these are given out per tournament, like the value of this will be like reasonably high as well. So like, this is an example of good pricing because they considered what type of cards people want and like the amount they're giving out. But I think like this wouldn't be feasible for the monthly Showdown tournaments because, again, this is cool if it's being given out once every, you know, like if there's only one tournament per store, like within that 3 months, right? But this card would also be worthless if you gave this out every single month in like a, you know, once per month tournament. Be worthless. So I just think like they just need to think a little bit more about the actual context of which they're giving out these, like, you know, these pricing. Yeah, not much else to say there. Either they'll take the feedback on board or they won't. But to be honest, all the people playing Shadowverse now are like, you know, we're already used to this treatment. So even if they do nothing, we'll probably still play. But that doesn't mean they can't improve the experience. That doesn't mean they can't improve the experience for us, right? So hoping that someone watching this can relay that feedback. Okay.
Such an easy fix, right? Like, what if they just did what if they just did like a fan vote, right? Like, here are your, you know, 20 options, and then everyone just picks one option on like whatever social media account they post, and whatever fan voted is gets posted the most. I mean, whatever gets picked the most.
You're getting ganked by mom.
Yeah, don't worry about
anyway, yeah, all good. Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I think it makes a lot of sense for it makes a lot of sense for them to, like, you know, run polls, ask people. Again, like I said, they could just literally ask me. I would be more than happy to give up my time. I bet you there's like hundreds of people like me, or even thousands of people like me, that'll be more than willing to give up their time and energy to help with like expanding or making the game better, right? They don't need to be shy about it. Like, you know, we all want the game to succeed. I mean, like, of course we do, because otherwise cards we buy will go to zero. So of course we're gonna like try and help like as much as we can, right? So yeah, I hope they just, you know, they listen to the community a little bit more. And again, like, you know, these ideas, like, I would play for like a I don't know. Find it out of card on my pile. I don't know, it doesn't even have to be like particularly great card. Let's just say I don't know, let's say like Rice Shower. Or maybe they won't do it because it's an Uma card. What would be a good card? Oh, like Athena, right? Maybe like if they put like a few sets down from the down the track, they had like a. I know they actually have an Altar Athena already coming out, but they could just have like this is like part of the Showdown, like monthly Showdown pack, and then like this is like one of like 20 cards that you can get, and it'd be the exact same rarity as this, except it just has like a stamp like there which goes like Showdown set 6 or Showdown set 7, right? And then basically collectors will want it because it's higher rarity than the base version. And so like people who are collectors, which many people are, right? I'm a rarity collector. Like I'm willing to go to tournaments to have a set of 3 of every single card within that pack. Right? I mean, it's just an example. It doesn't even need to have special foiling. It doesn't need to have premium foiling. It just needs to have a stamp. Pretty sure it doesn't cost anything to do. But yeah.
And Bma and I, like we talk in this fashion because from the other card games we play and compete in this type of structure where they give out like prize cards, they're actually like altars, or like they have like extremely like higher rarity of foiling and stuff like that. So like we're just asking for like the bare minimum in this regard.
Yeah. And again, it's like it's not because we're greedy or anything like that. I just think I'm already stuck. Like I know you don't play as much Shadow vs. Evolve these days, but like I still play a lot, and like I play out of the love of the game, but I know that financially it's like it's not as lucrative as like some of the other games, right? And like it's not even about me. It's sort of like how do I convince other people to play if I myself already know that like it's not like if I already myself know it's not lucrative, I can't tell people a lie. You know what I mean? And like, how do I convince them to play like another game where like they could make $100 by playing an 8-person tournament, right? I mean, I can't. It's just too hard. But like, it would help at the very least if I could go like, you want to play these because people are chasing after 3 copies of each of the promo card pack, which you can only get in that monthly Showdown or whatever. And then at least then like the cards would have a base value associated with them, right? And so like. I know it's more challenging than like what I've like described, but it would be like one methodology of which you could create that value for players. And when you create that value for players, people will feel incentivized to play. It'll be a larger turnout to tournaments. You get more social connection. People will be more willing to play long term. All this stuff, it all adds up together, and it's how you grow from a small game to a big game. They don't have to do any of this. Like I'll continue to play, and to be honest, like it might even be fine for me. It just means less people at my BCS event or BCF event, whatever, right? And I'll have a higher chance of going to Worlds or winning a big prize card. But I mean, it's not about that for me, right? It's for me, I want to see the game grow. So that's why I give that feedback. Yeah.
Like the worst case scenario is like you're going to locals and just like not being supported, and you just have no one to play with, right?
Yeah, which is the worst case scenario. Thankfully, like our scene is pretty good. Like we've got a lot of regulars, but like I said, it's like all of the people here we're too committed. We're too committed.
I was gonna say regarding on the comment you made, like the people that are still playing, like the people from our locals, they're already used to the burn, so they're gonna be playing regardless, right?
Yeah, but it's like how do you get the people who aren't used to the burn?
Yeah,
and like exactly that's right. Like the question to be asked, right? And yeah, I mean, that's just the challenging part. All right, let's move on. Next topic is also tournament pricing. So we're going to talk about the BCS and the Grand Showdown ones. So I'll set the scene. So I think Grand Showdown BCS are like actually the pricing is a step in like the right direction. Like I think what they're doing, I hope they keep doing it and they keep ramping up on it. Because like this is like what they're doing for the pricing for these events is like modern pricing for trading card games. Like I said, this is what other card games are doing, and like it makes people want to compete in the games, and I'm glad to see that they're doing it here as well. Like for context, I played at Bushiroad Springfest. I came 3rd place, and I got for 3rd place a medal, a certificate, and a participation pack. That's literally all I got for coming third. It's like, it's it's very disappointing, right? And like, I'm glad to see that's not going to happen to a future team or like a future player, because this time what they've done for BCS is they're doing a top cut. So like basically, depending on how many people are there, like there's a top cut where you get like additional pricing. So for example, I think you get like a foil mono token, which mono is like a very popular Shadowverse character. That's cool. And so like you don't have to finish top 8 in order to get this, right? So you can still be rewarded like for a solid performance. Like you don't have to drop immediately if you go X2. The other thing is like for top 8, I think we're all getting a playmat, right? And it's a pretty nice one. It's like the Kuon one. Like it's a nice playmat. I'd like to have one of those. Like very cool. And then top 4, you get an Acolyte's Light foil like version. So Acolyte's Light is like a staple card in Control Haven. It's played at like, I don't know how long it's played for. I think it's still played today, to be honest. If there were like a Control Haven deck. But yeah, anyway, that's a cool card. Like, yeah, that's something that you would feel happy about. And in first place, you get the one of a kind of a Kuon card. So only one person at BCS will win it. And that card is like really sick. Like, and then also first place, you get the sponsored trip to Japan for the World Championship. And then I think second and third, you also get a unsponsored invite to Worlds, right? So BCS, like obviously a huge step up from like the from the BCF, to be honest, from the Spring Fest. Huge step up. Like I'm very keen, and like I think it's a great step in the right direction. And then Grand Showdown, so that one is like if you make top 32, you get an alternate art Blazing Breath. That is very good. Please continue doing that for your future events. Like that is exactly the type of stuff that like the game needs in order to like attract players to play because of pricing. Now, granted, there's going to be a portion of players that don't care about pricing, and of course those players are going to play no matter what. But why not get the players that also care about pricing, right? And then also, even if you don't care that much about pricing, no one's going to turn down free money, right? Like, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, the top 32 thing's good. I mean, the only way they could expand it is if like they did top 64 as well, and then top 32, and then top 16, and then top 8. Something like that would be very good, I think. And like, I think for top 16, they are doing a prize. It's like the Guild Elise playmat, which also looks very nice. So that is also great from Bushiroad side games, right? And then top 8, you get the alternate art Guild Elise promo, which is again very good. And you get more copies as you progressively make it from top 4, top 2, etc. Right? So that's the type of pricing that like I think if they were to do that long term and they expand on that, like there's no reason why Shadowverse can't become like a tier 2 game. Let's just say like tier 1's probably impossible, but a tier 2 game, I think it's definitely something that Shadowverse Evolved could be. And it's like it's type of thing where like you can have your head held up high when people ask you, you know, what are you doing this week? And you're like, oh, I'm playing the Grand Showdown or whatever. And it's like, oh, what's surprising? Like, oh, well, if you win, you probably make like $3,000 or $4,000, right? And like that's the type of thing that like, you know, granted, that's not why you play card games, but like, I mean, it is good. Like when you go to your team standoffs, you know, for your full-time job, and like, how's your weekend? It's like, oh yeah, I just won a few $1,000 casually. But like, but yeah, you can only do that in that kind of situation, right? And like, it's nothing like that makes you more of a loser than when you're like, oh yeah, how was your weekend? Oh yeah, I came third at Bushiroad Springfest, and I got this certificate and this medal. Oh yeah, did you win any money? Oh no, but I got a participation pack, and that got me a tin soldier that I can sell for 30 USD. They're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Like obviously, like you just wouldn't say anything in that situation. You'd be like, oh no, I just played some card games on the weekend, and they're like, okay, cool. But like conversely, like when there are tournaments where I win and like I get like over $1,000, then of course I'm gonna be like bragging. I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I have done this by the way. I've been like, oh yeah, I just won like $1,000 in the weekend. Like I just came back from Melbourne. I probably won like over $2,000. Like that's cool. Like it adds legitimacy to the hobby. You'll be proud to talk about that, and I think that's missing to some extent. Sorry, I'll pass it on to you.
No, like again, like obviously you're like very passionate about what you said, and yeah, you pretty much stole the words out of my mouth. Honestly, there was a few things I was gonna like cut in and just say, but you just like pretty much said the same thing. So yeah, like you said with the like especially what resonated with me was obviously when the pricing is high, you'll be like proud and like brag about it and stuff like that, right? And that does come to like pretty sure like nearly everyone has that situation where it's like if it's not worth talking about, they just wouldn't mention it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think one other thing that like I kind of would like, to be honest, is like if they reduced the requirement to finish in the top one. I think like that's actually something that like I'm not really a fan of. I don't really like the fact that in Bushiroad titles in general, especially for Shadow's Evolve, right? Like where if you come first place, you get the free trips to Japan and you get the one of a kind Kuon promo. And it's like with a BO1 format, especially, right? You can get blown out so easily. Imagine coming second. And like the difference between second place and first place is like double to triple the monetary value. Actually, I think in this case, the actual difference, like if I'm reading it correctly, I think Kuon will be like 1k or like 2k or something like that, right? Like AED, let's just say. And then the flight from Australia to Japan is probably like an accommodation. That's probably like another 15 to 2k, right? Like minimum. So like you're probably making like 4k if you come first place at like a BCS, right? And then if you come second place, you're not getting 4k, buddy. You're getting like $400. Because like all you're getting the unsponsored trip, right? And then you're also getting the top 4 promo, which like both of you get. But the top 4 promo is probably only going to be worth like, I don't know, just say $400, something like that, right? So the difference between coming first and second is like $4,000 worth of difference, like a 10x difference, right? And then if you want to do that, please make it a BO3 in like, you know, these big money matches, right? The same thing for top 8. It's like top 8, if you lose in top 8, BO1, you're just out. You get the playmat, that's cool, but like you don't get another chance. You could go 7-0 in Swiss and then play your BO top 8 match, you lose one game because you got unlucky, and then you're out of the tournament in a BO1. Right? Whereas if you have BO3, it's like, oh, at least you played your best, right? And like you reduce the variance to as much as you could. And like the reason why this is a big deal is because like in top 8, right? When you lose, you're completely out. But in top 4, if you lose in these events, then like you lose a BO1 top 4, but you still get to play for 3rd place. And then 3rd place is the one that gets you the world invite. So you actually get to double elimination if you win your top 8 match. And so like the gap between top 8 and top 4 is actually insane. You don't get any like double chances, but if you win your top 8, you get 2 chances to make worlds, right? So like to me, it's just like if you want to make these lopsided price structures, please make top 8 BO3. Like, that's all I'm asking, to be honest. I think that is the single biggest change they can make, and it will like actually incentivize people to spend money to fly over to events. Like the reason I'm not going to fly over to Grand Showdown, even though I could afford it, is because there is no chance in hell I'm paying like 2k in accommodation and flights to fly over to this event, get to top 8, lose one BO1, and I'm flying back home. Like that's just unacceptable to me. Like you can't expect people to want to fly and pay $2,000 to $3,000, right, to attend these events when like you have a BO1 format. It just doesn't fly. No pun intended. Like, but like it just doesn't. It doesn't work. You can't incentivize people to go to these tournaments if the structure doesn't make sense. You want people to feel like if I'm spending these $2,000, I'm not just strictly gambling like I was when I bought 7 cases of BPO5. You want people to think, you know, I have the right prep. Like I brought the best deck. I played as well as I could. And like I didn't make it because like I wasn't good enough or whatever, right? At least you can accept that. But if it's like I fly all this way there, I played the best. I played actually better than my opponents like the entire day. I just like bricked on like the final game and I'm like out of the tournament. Like it's okay if like it's your local tournament, like you just drive an hour and then you're out of the tournament, right? But if you have to fly 12 hours, that's where it becomes impossible for me to justify. And obviously for a lot of other people.
Yeah, 100%.
Like why don't you like mention like how it is with like some of the card games you play with pricing structure? Because like I know like the card games you play, like you don't have to win the event, right? It's actually like top 32, top 16, top 8 and then like potentially it's like there's not even that big of a difference between first place or second place or third place, right? It's like as long as you make top 8, you pretty much make your money back, right?
Yeah, so with like some of the other tournament structures, obviously, instead of putting the grand prize at like all the way at top 1, rather they give like the grand prize to like top 16, or rather to like top 8, right? And then like, let's say whatever the top 16 or the top 8 prize would Bushiroad events would be pushed for like extra incentive for like progressing further up on the top 8, right? So I'd rather them like switch that around if it doesn't like obviously like hurt them instead like the monetization or whatever, right? Like if it doesn't like, you know. And also another thing I'd like to suggest is like I don't know why they think this way, but I'd prefer if they gave more unsponsored invites out to worlds, like maybe not restricted to top 3, maybe like put out to top 8 or top 16, like some of the other tournaments put it to top 32 or top 64, but like it depends on like how big of a tourney they want to hold on, and like how large like it's a work capacity. But you know, if it doesn't like hurt them at all in any way, like I don't see why, like for the people that want to play at a higher competitive level, like for people who don't even care about the pricing, but they just want to compete at the highest level, they want to go play at worlds, at least make it to like top 8, top 16, and let them fly on their own accord, you know, if they can afford it, right?
Yeah. And I think
But
like if they do want to keep it as like first, second, third, like are the only ones that get there, then please add BO3, please. Like a lot of people can't afford to travel to multiple different states. Like I'm fortunate that like I can afford to travel to Melbourne, like, you know, and not have to worry about, you know, the impact to my wallet, right? Like I get paid enough in my job to do that relatively guilt-free. But I think about the people who like are really committed to the game, but they're in uni or something, and they can't spend hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars that had to go, right? I mean, I can potentially go to the Grand Showdown in Singapore. That'll be our next topic, actually. In fact, we can talk about the BCS days. So, yeah, for the Oceanic region and like the CO region, basically all the BCS are in December. And the worst part is the Grand Showdown is on the 22nd of December. And like this is like peak travel season, like where you pay ridiculous amounts of money because everyone's like flying around to meet their family, with Christmas, New Year's, etc. So like the flight prices are unironically like double the price. So like what would usually be like a $600 to go to Singapore would be like $1,200, right? And it's like, again, I can afford to do that because firstly, my family doesn't celebrate Christmas. And then secondly, like, yeah, sure, $1,200 is a lot of money, but like it's not the end of the world. Like, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people in my workplace or like, you know, with a similar financial position, like they will just fly to Japan or Europe or America or something to like, you know, have an end of year holiday, right? So that is doable for people like, you know, for us, but I'm not necessarily the average person. I think there are a lot of people who could not possibly justify spending that amount of money to fly over primarily just to play a card game. Like, it's just too much money. Like, why is like the date set in December, like 3 days before Christmas, which is like literally the peak travel season? Like, what is the reason? To be fair, I don't know the reason behind it, but like what I'm saying is like, what is the reason? Because if your objective is to have like an event where you want as many players within your CO region to be able to attend, right? Why would you pick December 22? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really make sense. And like someone I spoke to was like, oh, did you hear how like you can now play in American tournaments? Like you can now play in American BCSs to qualify to the World Championship. And I was like, nobody's spending like $2,000 to go to a BCS in America. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one's doing that. And like, they're not even on like adjacent weekends or anything like that. It's like they're usually like 2 weeks set apart from each other. No one's like going to America to play the BCS, especially when the format is, again, like I said before, BO1. Like, you might be able to do it if it was a BO3 tournament, and then like you might feel like, well, I'm not going to get blown out by variance, right? Or if I do, I got really, really unlucky. But BO1, you expect to get blown out randomly. You do. Like, the game is not set in such a way that like the best player is always going to win. Like, I consider myself to be like one of the better shadow best players. You know, and I don't win every locals in Sydney. Like, sometimes I just lose randomly, and I don't feel like I should lose, but like, you know, sometimes they top deck something, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like you had like literally a 1 in 20 chance to win, and you knocked me out. Cool. And like that only happens 1 in 20 times, but over the course of a long tournament, who knows when that's gonna hit you? Like, you know what I mean? And like, as long as it's BO1, sorry, you can't mitigate that risk, and so you can't pay $1,000 or $2,000 to go traveling. Usually, obviously, the Singapore trip is a bit of an exception for me, but a lot of people I know, especially in Australia, I think like I can probably count on one hand the number of people who are going to travel for the Grand Showdown. Despite the fact that technically, if this event were held in like November, you'd probably have like triple to like quadruple the amount of people flying over to Singapore. So yeah, anyway.
A lot more than triple, I'd say, because you'll probably only be like maybe like 2 or 3 people max. But like, yeah, a lot more than if it. I mean, I'm just saying that because I was actually affected from what you said. Because remember, was it this year Worlds?
Yeah.
And right after Worlds, Chinese New Year happened, right? A week after.
Yeah.
And I was directly impacted by that because I had to pay 3 times the flight backwards just because of the the date.
The holiday season, yeah.
Yeah, the holiday season. So these things do happen, and like it does like when they remember like a bad memory or something like that, it does like relate to that experience, right? And the fact that they've like done it again really like puts a sour taste in some people's mouths. So yeah. I think this was definitely a miss, and they should have definitely like I don't know, changed the date or something like that at least, right?
But it has to be intentional, right? Like I said, you can't just schedule this and not be like, this is suspiciously close to Christmas. Like you can't not consider it. Like, you know what I mean? So obviously someone probably did flag it, and they were like, well, we have to do it on this day for some reason. Who knows why? But anyway, yeah, it's a bit disappointing. I mean, for me personally, it's okay. Like, I'll be going either way. But I mean, obviously, I'm not happy to pay an extra, like, what, $600 for flights. That I'm not happy about, obviously. But I can live with it. But a lot of people can't because their financial position is just not there, and that's pretty normal, to be honest. And I think if your objective is to have a high turnout for these events, you can't hold them around Christmas. Common sense. Okay. I think how long have we been talking for now? Like, it's been like what, 2 hours? Oh yeah, it's actually been. Yeah, it's been 2 hours. I think. Look, it's been a pretty good 2 hours of conversation. I think we did go a lot into the criticism mode for this particular for this podcast, and like I just couldn't be helped, like given the topics we were covering today. Like I try not to be like too critical in general, but like I think it was sort of constructive, right? Like it's like sort of like identifying like the areas of improvement, and like I think a lot of these can be addressed in the future as well too. Like, to be honest, like even with the Gloryfinder point we had earlier, it's like it's not too late to just create a product that's like very budget friendly, and like you can't use the cards in regular play at all. Like you just have like literally like Merlins and stuff like that. You go like Gloryfinder cannot be used in regular formats like that, and you just charge like $10 a deck or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about, you can actually fix them within like a time frame of like 3 to 6 months, right? Like we're not harping on like, here's an issue, like here's something that you did that was wrong like 5 months ago, and like there's no way you can ever fix it. Like, for example, we're not criticizing them like repeatedly on the on like the tournament structure they did last year for World's qualification, right? Where it was like after set 1, if you didn't win your store challenge or whatever to get the regionals invite, you had no reason to play set 2. Like, like misses like that, right? But like, we're not going on and on about that because that's something that's already happened and they've already learned their lesson from that. But like what we're talking about now are like issues that we're seeing real time, and it's not too late for them to course correct on it. And so like the purpose is basically to illustrate like where there's an issue, and where's the potential for like an improvement, right? And like the ball is in their court because it's not something that we as two random people speaking, right? No matter what our position in the community might be, we're not the ones who can actually change that. At the end of the day, it's Bushiroad that can. What our job is to basically go, hey, these are the things that we're seeing. Maybe you didn't know about this, and now you do, right? And now that you do know, it's up to you guys what you want to do. And that's basically like, you know, the main topic, like, you know, the main prevailing theme that we had tonight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not
Not much else to say.
There's not much else to say.
Yeah, not much else to say. But look, overall, like apart from my disastrous 7 cases, and I'm enjoying Shadowverse a lot right now. Like BPO5 has been a fun meta. I think like, you know, we're approaching peak period in terms of like the peak, you know, gameplay and like card design and like deck building. We're gonna see a lot more of that. Now, one thing we didn't get to talk about today, but I think we probably should just call it a day. But we didn't talk about the accelerated schedule of like I think like the difference between Idol Master and Set 7 is like only a month or something like that. But what that does probably mean is that the next podcast will probably be a lot sooner than like, you know, the gap between this one and the last one. So maybe we'll look into doing another one like around BPO 6, and then, you know, given that the gap is like shortening, like it means maybe the podcast would be like more frequent, at least so you'd hope. But yeah, that's pretty much it from us for this time. If you managed to watch all the way through for the 2 hours, kudos. I'm pretty much extremely thirsty after that, but yeah, thank you so much, James, as always, for you know, for jumping on and being a co-host for this podcast. Sorry that it was delayed a bit. You know, James felt sick after the Melbourne trip when we were originally planning on doing this podcast, but we finally found some time. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys for the next episode of The Last Word. All right, see you guys.